Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Money Matters. I'm your host, Hung Lu, and today is October the 27th, so a couple of days before Halloween. So wishing everybody a safe and fun time around Halloween. I love that time frame. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about something really, really fun and super realistic because here's the thing. Kids have a way of making something super simple and just being super honest. And so this is a conversation that I had the last couple of days with my kid. And I want to share it because it leads into a really solid foundation around money management and financial literacy. Okay, so it totally makes sense to have this conversation. And if you have a kid, definitely try to get them to bring up this conversation because it's absolutely amazing if they learn this early on. Okay, and as a parent, if you can get this done, oh my God, like you're setting them up for a great future. Okay. So here is the premise before we get into the Excel sheet here. So my kid came to me and he goes, Mom, how much money do I have in my investment account? So I said, well, like 5,000 bucks, like he's been putting in, 20 bucks here, 50 bucks there, whenever birthdays, Christmas, like anything, right? So he's got about 5,000 and he's like, "Oh, okay, so how much is it worth now?" And I'm like, "Well, if it's compounding at 10%, you'll double that in 7 years." And he's like, "What? What does that mean?" Okay? So we brought up the spreadsheet because I built this with him as he was like in my office so that we could actually walk through the numbers here. And he understands the concept of the rule of 72, but actually seeing it on paper is very different. Okay. So his thought process is, Mom, I only want to work 4 hours a day and make enough money to cover my rent and my utilities. Okay. And I'll explain where that conversation comes in from. And then I want to spend the rest of my day playing video games. He's 12 years old. Of course, that's what he wants to do, right? Like just play video games. So his premise, like his thought process is, what do I need to do to just make my basic living so that I have the rest of the day to do what I want? Okay. And this is a very common want for a lot of adults. Hey, you know what, Hong? I just want to make enough money to pay for the groceries, my mortgage, take care of the family, and then I want to be able to spend the rest of my time doing whatever I want. It's the same want that my kid has from what I hear from a lot of adults, right? That financial freedom. Okay. And this came about because one day he goes, Mom, I can take care of myself, right? I can take care of myself. So I don't need to go to school anymore. I don't have to go to school. I don't have to go to university. I can take care of myself. So this was when I said, okay, you know what, kid, you have to pay rent and you have to pay utilities before you can take the day off to do whatever you want. And then he's like, well, what's utilities? And I'm like, well, water, property taxes, insurance, food, heat, right? All of that stuff is utilities. Like you don't get to just, pay rent and not utilities. Like you got to pay utilities plus your rent. Okay. Plus, you got to take care of all the rental income mortgages on top of that. So that's where he's like, okay, you know what, Mom, if I can just work 4 hours and make enough money to pay my rent and pay my utilities and take care of all the investments, then I should have the rest of the day to do what I want. Okay, so there's some grounds to that. So here's the thing. So I built out this spreadsheet with him and I said, okay, kid, you're 12 years old now. You've got 5,000 in there. This money will double in 7 years. So up till about here. Okay. So 7 to 8 years at 10%, you're going to double that. So it's going to be around 10,000. And he sort of looked at me and said, Hey, Mom, that sucks. Like it's only 10,000, right? Well, here's the thing. You're starting with five, right? That's not a ton of money. The other thing is that we're not adding in any more money, right? This is assuming the 5,000 is where he stops on that contribution amount. Okay. So, but now here's the great thing. That 5,000 now, by the time he's 30, is $30,000. Okay. By the time he's 35, that 5,000 is $50,000. Like he hasn't added anything to that. Okay. So that was a really good aha for him to realize, like, hey, you know what? The more money I put in, the more compounding it's going to do. Okay, fantastic. Now, here's the thing. Once I told him that, he was like, and I'm not exactly sure how the dots connected for him, But he goes, Mom, why don't we borrow $1 million? Just like out of the blue. Mom, let's just borrow $1 million, go and make this 10%. And then that's more than enough. Like that's more than enough than what we need. Okay, so I don't understand how that connection got made for him. Okay, but I'm glad it got made because here's the thing. Because if we could borrow $1 million, okay, and his idea was, Mom, let's just go to every single bank and borrow $1 million from each bank, right? Like there's no scarcity mindset there. And I'm like, but they're not going to give us $1 million at every single bank because we can't leverage that much. Okay, different conversation, right? Like another conversation. So his idea was, well, Mom, let's borrow the million. Okay. Oh, here we go. We'll undo that one. Okay, we're going to borrow $1 million and we're going to make 10% on that money. Okay. So his idea is borrow $1 million, we're going to make 10%. So then the amount that we get at the end of the year, which totally makes sense here, is $100,000. That's more than enough to pay rent, utilities, and have a ton of fun money. Okay, so that's fantastic. So he got that idea. But then I was like, okay, but wait a minute though. If you borrow this 10% from the bank, you have to pay them money. It's not free money. Like you have to pay them some sort of interest on that money. It's some return. Okay. And so this is where this bigger table, this table at the top comes in. Okay, so right now, if we were to borrow money from the bank at $1 million, okay, and I used 5% here because this is how much HELOC money is right now. If you are borrowing this from a credit card, completely different calculation here, okay? So let's just run through this calculation on a 5% HELOC interest rate. If we were to borrow $1 million, what does that actually mean? Okay, so the cost of borrowing this $1 million at 5%, it's going to cost us $50,000. Okay, so in the whole scheme of things, it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. Okay, so that's $4,200. Okay, so the way to calculate this is you take your 1 million times your 5%, that gives your 50,000. Then you take this 50,000, divide that by 12, and that gives you your 4,200. Okay, so this is how much it's going to cost you to borrow this 1 million. Okay, so the conversation that I had with my kid was, hey, yeah, fantastic. You can borrow this 1 million, but you better be able to pay back the 50,000 at the end of the year. Okay, and so that works out to be about 4,200. Okay, so then he was like, oh, well, does that still make sense? Okay, so then that's where I was like, well, look, at 10%, yeah, maybe. At 15%, absolutely, because here's the thing. If you take this 1 million and you invest it in something that gives you 15%, okay, then you're making 150,000. Okay, so the math on that is your 1 million times your 15. Okay, so you're making 150,000 minus your 50,000 that you have to pay for the loan to the bank. You're making 100,000. Okay, so if your target is 100,000, then you just got to make sure that you make enough money to cover that difference that you have to pay in interest. Okay, so the profit there is just the 150 minus the 50 that we have to pay. So we get our 100,000, and that's the money that we live off for the year. Okay, so this makes sense. Okay, now it's actually really funny because from a kid's point of view, his logic was very simple. Like, hey, let's just borrow $1 million and invest that and live off of that money. Okay. But he did not connect the dots saying, hey, you know what? We have to actually pay that money back and the interest. Okay. And this is how it's so relevant to adults because a lot of times adults don't realize that there's a cost to borrowing here. Okay. And so if you and the trap that us adults get into is that we borrow this 1 million without even realizing it because we use our credit cards. Okay. We go and we use our HELOC, and instead of investing it into real estate or a business or stocks, we take that HELOC money and we go and we buy a TV, we buy a new car, we buy doodads. Okay. A doodad is a term from the rich dad, poor dad game. Okay. So that's the trap that us adults get into, is that we live way above our means. Okay, so here's the thing. So my kid was like, Mom, I just need to make enough money in my 4 hours a day to pay for my rent and my utilities and my investments. Okay. And the good thing was that he threw in the investment word. Okay. Because that is the trap that a lot of the adults get stuck in, is that they make enough money to cover rent and living expenses. And that is it. They do not make enough for the investment. And if you don't make enough for the investments, this is the amount that gets invested. If you don't make enough extra for the investments, you will not be able to take advantage of compounding. You will not be able to take advantage of time, and you will not get this doubling effect, this rule of 72, this extra 10%, this extra 10,000 that we see from investments. Okay. And so it was really interesting because the conversation that I had with my kid was not about video game time. Okay. It wasn't about, hey, I just want to, play video games. The conversation was really about financial freedom, having the time to do what you want when you want with who you want. Okay. And he is super happy being stuck in his room playing video games 24/7. Okay. So how can he go about doing that? Well, to do that, he needs to generate enough money for rent and utilities and the investment account, right? Where is he going to invest to make extra money so that he gets to build that, so that by the time he's 25, he has 18,000 bucks, and that $18,000 can just keep investing and making money for him. Okay. So as an adult, I want to ask you, like, if you had all this free time, what would you do? Okay. Now, to get that free time, you need to have an investment that's going to generate 10+%. Okay. What investment is that? Okay. Like, tell me what investments you're going to put that in, because I would love to know. Okay. I've got my investments going, but hey, if you've got a better investment, I'd love to know that. Okay. So that is the other question that I have for you. Okay. Now, the other thing to bring up is this freedom number. Okay. I calculated years and years ago that my freedom number was 9 doors. Okay. And if you don't know what that means, it's okay. 9 doors is just a real estate expression saying, okay, once I own 9 units, as long as I maintain those 9 units and pay the mortgage off, that is all the rental income I need to pay off the expenses to give me the lifestyle that I want. So that is my financial number, okay, which was 9 doors. Okay, so now what is your financial number? It could be the number of doors, it could be a dollar value, it could be whatever gauge that you use to measure that, so that when you hit it, you know you've reached that number. Okay. Under the rich dad, poor dad idea, it's the minute your passive income is greater than your expenses, you've reached your financial number there. Like you're out of the rat race. Okay. So for your financial number, okay, it is your rents or your mortgage, all your utilities, every single utility that you can think of. Okay. These two items. Oh, and so under the utilities is food as well. Okay. So I'm just going to put that under there. Okay. Rent, utilities, and food, car, all of that stuff. Like, what is the basic living that you need to have? Okay. And if you've got a family, well, then you've got to include that in there too. Okay. This is your basic number. This is your basic freedom number. Okay. But you need to add in a minimum of 10% on top of that for investments. Okay. 20% would be better. 30% would be excellent. Anything above that would be amazing. Okay. So what is your freedom number? Okay. Once you figure that out, then work towards that freedom number. For my kid, his freedom number right now is 0 because I take care of all that. Okay. But I'm installing in him that he needs to actually, hey, you know what? If you want to quit school, if you want to play video games all day, you better be prepared to pay rent and utilities. Okay. It's not a freedom, like it's not a free ride on mom here. Okay, so let me just check here. Okay, right. So a couple of points here. One is your money working harder for you than you are working for your money? That's the one thing to take away from this video, is that if you want that financial freedom, your money's got to work harder for you. Okay. And if your answer is yes, my money is working harder for you, then you're going down the right track. Okay. The other thing is, and this is linked. The second thing to take away from this video is linked to what my kid was saying, is that, hey, mom, I want to only work like 4 hours a day, and so that I can have the rest of the day off. Okay. That is an indication of you don't need to work more hours to be wealthy, like to make more money. The number of hours you work does not translate to more money. Okay. So figure out how much money you need to live the lifestyle that you want. Okay. Design the life that you want, and then figure out how much money you need for that. And then that's what you work towards. Okay. Now we all have a different, lifestyle design. Like my ideal lifestyle is to be hiking and camping all day. Okay. So which is different from somebody who wants to be at a five-star resort all day, every day. Okay. So what is that number for you? Okay. And just keep in mind, like wealth, money in your bank account doesn't necessarily translate to more hours having to be working. Okay. So the other thing is, the FIRE movement. Oh yeah. Financial independence, retire early. Okay. So this conversation that I had with my kid was really, it leads to that conversation about the FIRE movement. Okay. And I love the FIRE movement. Like I think financial independence, retire early is a great mindset to have if you have other things that you want to spend your time at. Like if you've got hobbies, if you've got desires outside of being in front of your computer, find that balance and then figure out how to be part of the FIRE movement. Okay, so that is a quick a quick calculation for you guys. Okay, that is all I've got. So thank you so very much for tuning in. Let me just make sure. Yeah. Okay, so the trap that I talked about, the credit card trap where, you put everything on your credit card or you take your HELOC and you go buy something, just make sure that it comes with a return. That is a financial return that compounds over time. That's all I have to say about that. Okay, so thank you everybody for watching. I hope you got a lot of great info out of this. Okay, and I guess at this point I should put in my disclaimer here that this is my conversations with my kid. This is the way I'm parenting. This is the advice that I'm giving to my kid. It may not be the right advice for you, for your kids, for your family. So just double check that before you go and implement it. Okay, now I would love to get some feedback on the way I'm parenting with the strategies that I'm using, positive or negative, please. I would like the thumbs up, but if it's not a thumbs up, okay, just tell me why. Okay, other than that, have a fabulous and safe Halloween, everybody. Lots of candies to everybody. Thank you so very much. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.